Old jokes, old jokes. Here we go. Right, okay. Now then, we're coming to the highlight of the morning. And I think you all know him anyway, so he needs no introduction. But I said, I'm going to give you an introduction. So the first thing I want to say about this gentleman is he puts a lot of work into these things, and I think it's absolutely fabulous. All these like-minded people. So let's give him a round of applause before he gets up. Just for that. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce onto the stage the wonderful Mr. Phil Escott. Yay!
Oh, isn't he lovely? I'm going to take this out like that. It's easier. Right. Thank you again for coming down. Now, what I like to do at the beginning of everything, I like to see who eats what. So, have we got any omnivores? Just eat anything. You've been eating anything you want for a while. Cool. And anybody paleo, kind of paleo-ish? Yeah. Anyone gone keto yet? Yeah. So any full carnivores? Whoa. Any vegans? Yay! Cool. It's always cool to know kind of what's going on, you know. So yeah. I suppose quite a lot of you have heard this journey, but I shall whiz through it and kind of what happened to me, because it's been an interesting journey, because I really thought that I knew what I was talking about for many years. I studied diet and lifestyle and that kind of thing for a long time. And I was writing books on sort of vegetarian eating and Ayurveda and things like that in the 90s. And I didn't realize that it was really damaging me. And not only had I misinterpreted Ayurveda, but I'll come on to that in a bit. But I had this this really strong idea that mostly from the spiritual side of things, because I moved up here for 6 months in 1986, and 2 families later I'm still here. And I came up because of the transcendental meditation thing in Skelmersdale, the community there. And as you can see here, that was me that was the kind of thing I was doing in 1987 or so. So that is the TM version of yogic flying, where they think, I'm sorry if there's any meditators in here and I'm going to upset them, but they think that bouncing around on your ass in lotus on foam mattresses is going to create world peace. And I was kind of taken in by that for a while, and I thought, I wish I still had knees like that, I tell you. Anyway. I was taken in by that, but I was also taken in by that you'll never get enlightened if you eat meat. And this is one of the ways that we get fooled into certain diets, you know, for very strange reasons, ignoring our ancestry. And by the end of the 90s, I had sort of joint pain here and there. I'd kind of lost a wrist, and it wasn't diagnosed as that then, and so after every set on drums, I'd have to put it into ice bath. Ice bucket rather, not an ice bath. I got ice bath on the brain from what's going on. So I had things going on that I just think, this is a little grumbling thing. This is happening. And I just wish I could have gone back into to myself at that age and said, listen to the whispers before they become shouts. And I would say that to everybody, because quite a lot of the time. Doctors are not particularly interested until your leg's falling off, pretty much, because it's not their fault, because they're totally rushed, and they don't have time with these short appointments, and so you can't kind of go to the shaman and say, I had this really kind of strange dream, and this happened and that happened. Right, let's interpret that, But the average doc isn't gonna be interested in that. But the little whispers, and they were there, and they were a bit more than whispers actually, because. Then I ran a gym in the late 90s, and I got pretty big and muscly, and then lost most of the muscle and became emaciated on my last vegan experiment, when after I got psoriatic arthritis. But you can see in this shot, that's me on the left with my daughter, who's around, well, was yesterday anyway, and she's 16 now. But you can see from the difference between her there, it's not much difference. It wasn't long when I finally figured it out that you should really, you know, you can eat a whole load of fatty meat. You don't have to exercise. I mean, that was me on the left, counting calories, lots of plants, lots of mountain biking, weight training. And then at the end of 2010, absolutely crippled with psoriatic arthritis. Just everything blew up, couldn't move, suicidal pain. And I had to throw out everything I thought I knew. After going vegan for a while with a lot of spinach smoothies and ending up in just as much pain, but with kidney stones as well from the oxalates. That was a bit of a lesson. And then coming out of it there, but it was a long thing. So, you know, the fatty top left there with the dreadlocks, and then the vegan experiment. You know, I probably lost half the weight, didn't I, by cutting the dreadlocks off, I guess. But that was my 2011. That was my first haircut since 1979, I think. But anyway, you can see the progression of it there, and this is something I'd like to talk about, because a lot of people worry about losing a load of weight. When I see people go carnivore, they say, I'm too skinny. This has happened, that's happened. Now I see how the mic's going. Right, that humming thing. So, yeah, I think that there is often in the healing phase a very kind of emaciated kind of stage that you can get to. And a lot of people get very frightened with this during the healing of autoimmunity. And I'm going to come on to that. That's quite important. But you can see the progression there, where top left hadn't got sick yet, and then the next one with the dreadlocks still, that was after some veganism. A lot of muscle had been lost. And then bottom left, Thailand, I think that was like 2010, 2011, and still living on painkillers, destroying my gut with ibuprofen. And then the real emaciated one there, you can see the legs gone, the knees blown up. And then it started to come right. It started to come really, really, really good. And by the end of 2015, all the muscle back, you know, bottom right there. But what's going on here? You know, there is an autoimmunity epidemic, for sure. They say there's over 80 conditions have been identified as autoimmune conditions. But are they what we've been told? I really don't think so. So what are the theories? Now, there's the popular one from the sort of plant-based people, that it's acidity from meat. That's not how the body works. You don't alkalize the body takes care of its own pH. Molecular mimicry, now that's a bit better than just the body's attacking itself and we don't know why. This means that certain proteins get through a leaky gut, and the body decides that there are some tissues in that are similar, and so it tries to attack them. It's a bit better because at least the cure is the same, fixing the leaky gut. You know, there are a lot of toxins that create leaky gut, and a lot of them are in plants. It's like somebody who has diabetes, for example, and I'm sure we're going to hear from David Unwin on that, because the amazing work he's doing with that. It's more of a, you know, carbohydrate intolerance kind of thing. But when you get autoimmunity and the gut's very leaky, often one goes with the other, obviously. But so many toxins are in plants that cause leaky gut. And I think it is compounded by glyphosate. It's funny, like Anthony Chaffee, he says that there's 136 known human carcinogens in an organic Brussels sprout. And so there's 137 with the glyphosate. You might as well stay at home and spray glyphosate in your mouth. I think he's making a bit of a point there in his video, Plants Are Trying to Kill You, on YouTube. Check it out if nobody's seen it. It's very entertaining. But I think that, more like Natasha Campbell-McBride says, that we've been having, since the glyphosate's come in, it's a broad-spectrum antibiotic. And so it's made us less tolerant to foods that we were absolutely fine with, like our parents and grandparents were absolutely fine with. So I seem kind of militant, no veg at all. I don't think anybody needs to be that strict unless they've got autoimmunity. But if you have really, it makes such a difference. Such a difference. If I'd have known that, if I could go back to myself in 2010 and say, put 10,000 quid into Bitcoin. But apart from that, I'd say, please just go full carnivore, because you're heading for real trouble. And you know, the times that I messed about, I've got it out of 30 joints with no damage, but I pretty much lost a knee and a wrist. And I say to anybody, or anybody you know with autoimmunity, beef, lamb, salt water, seriously. And I don't think there is such a thing as autoimmunity, because this is something, you know, that Natasha Calvert-McBride says that there is no such thing as bad inflammation. And I think this is really beautiful, because, okay, inflammation is horrendous and you want to get rid of it, but the body doesn't know how to work against you. If you get everything right, inflammation dies down very quickly. I mean, just try fasting, or particularly dry fasting, no food, no water. See how quickly inflammation dies down. And then people fast a lot because they're still taking in the foods that cause inflammation afterwards. So, you know, but if you fast, anybody who doesn't believe that it's got anything to do with food, just fast, the inflammation comes down. I remember I used to go from just limping, could hardly walk, to absolutely running around when I first had it. But then I'd keep on eating the wrong foods. I didn't quite understand it. But no such thing as autoimmunity. So if the molecular mimicry thing was right, or the standard view of autoimmunity, when the gut's healed, there are still antibodies against those toxins that came in. It would still be attacking the parts of the body that it thought were those toxins, right? But it doesn't. And this was a little piece of the puzzle that was put together when we were in Spain recently, and Anthony Chaffee was talking. And I'd said in my talk that there's no such thing as autoimmunity, but I didn't really gather that. And I think that's a really important thing for people to realize, that those antibodies are still there. If autoimmunity really existed, it would carry on attacking the body, but it doesn't. It doesn't get confused. It knows what the toxins are. You heal and seal the gut, and that inflammation dies down. But there are a load of things that I did, little things, and of which everybody does when they're sick. Take this, try this herb, try this pill, try this powder. Yes, sometimes they might work, but there is nothing more important than subtraction. Just in my course that I have online called Autoimmunity, the subtraction method, because you just take the stuff away. There's no point. Some of these techniques, supplements, this and that, they can be beneficial to some people. You know, if you want to know if you need something, you know, talk to somebody like Richard, you know, like Richard Smith, because he understands supplements. Somebody really understands when you need them and when you don't. Most people don't. I mean, who's got a cupboard full of out-of-date supplements that they thought were an absolute miracle? And every few years, out they come, you know, and they go in the bin, and that one was going to heal me completely. Oh, this one, you know, and they don't. What is, you know, hose the mud off the car before you polish it. That's the way I look at it. And that is by taking away everything that's causing these issues. And what's so good, I think, about this weekend is that all these things are covered by people who are speaking here. You know, all the different areas. It's not just diet. We've got emotional trauma release. We've got stuff, we've got all sorts of things going on. And I think this is all part of the ancestral disconnects that we have. So for me, when trying to identify bullshit in diet and in lifestyle, just look at it with the ancestral lens. It's not 100% accurate, but it's better than listening to 100 different conflicting diet gurus. So there was a great game that was played on Anthony Chaffee's podcast a while ago. It's a guy called Anthony Fazey. I don't know if anyone's come across him. But I love this. Forget all the bias studies and food gurus. Just name an animal in the wild that doesn't have an optimal diet. Oh, they have, you know, this lion. I'm not having that antelope. I'll have a little quinoa salad. It doesn't happen. They all have an optimal diet. Or eats a multi-ingredient diet. I'll have a little salad with that antelope. Doesn't happen. Juice is their food. No animals do that. Counts calories, goes for a jog, sees blue light after sundown, wears shoes. We're not grounded. You know, takes medication. Actually, some of them do, but they know when to, because plants can be medicine. And so, you know, dog will go and eat this and that when they think that they need to. And worries about the past, future, mortgages, that kind of thing. If you know, our ancestors or indigenous tribes, they just go build a hut. They're grounded. They're outside. No artificial light. the mortgage company doesn't come and steal that back. You know, they don't have any bills. It's all ties in, and this is why we get sick. All of it affects mitochondrial functioning. But where did all this come from? Where did we lose our way? Okay. Well, this gentleman on the left, it's not actually a gentleman. That is Ellen G. White. Because every time I show this picture, they go, "That's a woman." No, but she was a teenager in the 1800s, and she was part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And she, I think she came out of a coma or something, and had these visions that we should all eat a Garden of Eden diet so that there was no sexual desire. Because I wonder something, how do they think we got here? I don't. But anyway, this was the whole thing. That you mustn't do anything like that. You mustn't. It's terrible business. And so you have to eat this bland diet, Garden of Eden diet. Anyway, they employed some young boy to come and help with the pamphlets and this and that, you know, typesetting, I think. Anyway, he got a bit brainwashed by all of this too. And he grew up to have a load of the cereal companies in the Midwest. And that's him on the right. That's Harvey J. Kellogg. And he was a lunatic. He was absolutely barking mad. But he decided as well that this was absolutely disgraceful. And do we have any kids in here at the moment? Right. Nobody's supposed to touch themselves at all. This is wrong. This is so basically, it's the Harvey Kellogg's anti-masturbation cornflakes. That's what they were invented for, to stop people touching themselves when they weren't supposed to. But this guy was a proper lunatic. He went further than that, saying that there should be circumcision for both sexes without any anaesthetic, putting carbolic acid on there. So, I mean, look him up. And when you see where all of this sort of plant-based things come from, and the Seventh-day Adventists are still one of the biggest educators, I think, after the Catholic Church. In America, they've got schools, they've got hospitals, they've got all kinds of stuff going on. And there's a fly bothering me. So this is where it's come from. And when you see that probably a lot of the Western vegetarianism came from the visions of a pretty disturbed teenage girl in the 1800s. People go, "Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?" Because we've never done that. It was put out, you know, for those couple of centuries as something very, you know, this was the age when they used to cover up piano legs, wasn't it, in case it enraged desire. I mean, look at this. I'm sorry to run this in, but it is just ridiculous. I've just found this when I was looking for some of the other ones, but I love this, onania, or the heinous sin of self-pollution, and all its frightful consequences in both sexes. Amazing. That's where it's come from. So what is actually the human diet in the wild? Why don't people say, what do humans eat in the wild? Because we don't know. We've forgotten. So if you have an animal that's sick, or you find it in the road or something, you want to take care of it, oh, what does it eat? You have a look. What do they eat in the wild? And that's the obvious choice, to feed them. But everyone's arguing about what we eat in the wild, but it is extremely obvious. I mean, we're going to hear from Mary Ruddick tomorrow, and she travels around all the tribes. And basically, all around the world, it's 90 to 100% meat, depending on latitude and season. No grains or seed oils, obviously. None of the fruit and veg that are in our shops. They are all toxic to a certain extent. No dairy. This is a contentious one, because nobody wants to give up their dairy. I mean, what's nicer? I could eat cheese all day. Blocks of it, I wouldn't stop. But I feel way better without it. And to be really controversial, raw dairy could be worse than pasteurized dairy. Now, why is that? That kind of shocked me. We were walking around the Peak District at the Public Health Collaboration with Sophia Clements. And she was talking about this, and I said, I've got a video of that. And so I had a bit of a ridiculous conversation with her. It's on my YouTube channel. You should have a look. It's funny. We came to the conclusion that the only dairy you should have is the plastic American cheese, because it doesn't have much dairy in it, and then just wear it as a hat. But, you know, I know people love dairy if they get on well with it, but it's something to consider is there an animal in the wild that has dairy past weaning? If you're fine with it, and it's brilliant, enjoy. I'm not here to say to anybody should eat anything, but there are certain things that we've been told that are proper nonsense. So, pasteurized milk, the lactase is destroyed, so everybody gets problems digesting the lactose. But it also destroys some of the growth factors, and the growth factors are the things that can cause unusual cell replication in an adult. This is paleomedicina's take on it. And I would say that actually makes some logical sense, because when you have raw milk, then you digest it easier. And so people go, oh, this is lovely, raw milk's great. But is it long term? Or is there some mitochondrial damage coming from that? Who knows? It's an interesting thought. Because paleomedicina, they put it up with grains and seed oils. But these are people who are taking in really, really sick people. You know, pancreatic cancer, glioblastomas they're reversing, all kinds of stuff. Are they right? Sophia said when my partner, she was diagnosed with Graves' disease, and she was saying, not even a molecule a month. And my first 4 years carnivore, I've been carnivore for 10 years now. And my first 4 years I had meat, butter, a little bit of cheese. And then she had Graves' disease in 2019, and she was saying, yeah, I can give up the plants, but giving up the dairy is going to be difficult. Do I have to give up butter? And we just got rid of the butter, everything, swapped it out with tallow, and took heroic doses of iodine, which the endocrinologist told us would kill her immediately, and that reversed all her thyroid levels within about a week. Really big doses of iodine, the sort of thing they definitely say your head's going to fall off. And I stopped with her, and I wasn't getting any joint issues particularly at the time. That had kind of sorted themselves out. But suddenly abs came out again, and all my sinus issues cleared up that I thought I was blaming on, you know, central heating, that kind of thing, dust. Anyway, yeah, it was quite a wake-up call. So I would say eat what you like, I always do. Vegan, vegetarian, anything, eat what you like. But there are some things to think about, you know. Are the things that we've been told are the great saviors of health, like raw milk, are they really? Don't know. Worth considering. I'm not saying definitely or not, because the jury's still out. But it does make sense what paleomedicina say. There we go. So, the basic thing is it's the processed stuff that's the worst, isn't it? You know, it's high in deuterium, which is another rabbit hole. Causes unusual cell replication. Humans are the only species intelligent enough to make their own food, but stupid enough to eat it. I love that quote. So there are a load of modalities, aren't there, that are like alternative things. The German new medicine, it's great. Poisoning, deficiency, and trauma. But what are we being poisoned by? Because they don't really go into the diet. They don't really go into, you know, if somebody's really sick, it is really, really effective to get rid of absolutely all the plants. Traditional Chinese medicine, again, a load of herbs. Is it too complicated? Gerson therapy. Some people say, yeah, this reverses cancer. Yeah, it can do. It's basically a fast, but then it tends to come back again. And you get horrible plant toxin overloads with the green smoothies. Because, you know, if you want to eat vegetables, great, but please don't do green smoothies. There is a toxic load of amount of green smoothies, spinach smoothies. And I think I was probably about a third of the way there every single day for about 6 months. So no wonder I had kidney stones. Ayurveda. I love Ayurveda. You know, I grew up on this with the TM community, with all the Indian spirituality. It's got some great stuff, particularly the circadian stuff, you know, very, very cool. Are they necessary if you eat no plants? But if you look at my friends in the TM community, a lot of them are really falling apart. And my heart goes out to them. I'm not being nasty, but they are. And they still think that Ayurveda is a vegetarian thing. So did I, even when I wrote a book on it. But if you look in the old texts, the Charak Samhita, the oldest Ayurvedic text, states that for the promotion and nourishment of the body, no other food item is better than meat. And the Bhava Prakash, the meat of freshly killed animals is like Amrit, the ultimate life-giving fluid that sustains the divine. And this has been forgotten by a lot of Ayurvedic practitioners in the West. So, what really are the things that create health? Because the cleverer boffins than me are going to go into really the ins and outs of how this all works during this weekend. But really simply, my friend Dr. Jack Cruz would tell me it's all about light and sunlight. Stop being a diet guru and be a light guru. Tell everyone to get out in the light. I think that rules the whole of nature, really, doesn't it? The sun, the seasons, everything like that. But, I'm sorry, Jack, brilliant as you are, if somebody has screaming rheumatoid arthritis, changing the bulbs for red bulbs in the evening and wearing blue blockers isn't going to do it at that stage. But if you take everything away, if you dry fast and then eat fatty meat, be amazed how quickly the inflammation would go down. And if you do all the other things, it's going to work even quicker. Grounding. Get your feet on the ground. Fasting, dry fasting if you want. Emotional health, EFT. I've used this a lot. Now, sitting at the back there is the amazing Maidi Goodson, who's speaking tomorrow. I've known her for a long time, and she lives very close to here. And when I was really sick in 2010 and 2011, she helped me so much. An utter genius with all the emotional freedom technique, loads of other modalities. Just great trauma release knowledge, absolutely brilliant. You'll hear in her talk. But even meditation and spiritual work, you know, all of this stuff ties in. But family, friends, love, gratitude, family and friends, you know, and life, just community. That's what's so great about these kind of things, because this is how people used to live. Now we got like 5,000 friends on Facebook, and you don't know 499,000, 4,900, whatever it is. You just don't know them, you know? So this is how it was in tribes, and this is how we're designed to live. And if you see the areas where they pretend that they eat plant-based diets, and they call them blue zones, where they don't eat plant-based diets at all, they eat a load of meat, but they also have all these other things in place usually. Great community, great family, that kind of thing. It's funny, isn't it, that now I think it's really sad. I'm going to get kind of a bit confrontational here, but Steve will approve with his channel. Wisdom used to be passed down from the elders, but now where are our elders? They end up in care homes. They end up being injected with pretty dodgy things. And then they get fed sugar. Would you like another cup of tea? Do you want a jam sandwich? Do you want an ice cream, jelly? You know, all of this sort of thing. And no wonder they've got Alzheimer's, which is basically type 3 diabetes. You know, you run on ketones, and that can really, really turn around spectacularly. So that was what was happening. We used to get knowledge passed down by the elders. So they're all in the care homes being fed crap and over-medicated. Who do we have in the schools? These bizarre trannies in bondage gear reading very, very weird books. And I'm sorry if that upsets people, because I think anybody should do whatever they like when they're an adult. But the push on kids and the really, really weird stuff that's going on now, it worries me. It really does worry me. So it's all anti-family, anti-community, you know. If you want to identify as, you know, an attack helicopter, as Bart Kay says, absolutely go for it. But, you know, pushing it on the kids, very, very weird, very, very weird. So, exactly how strict do you have to be for healing autoimmunity? Fatty ruminant animal meat, beef, lamb, bison, goat, venison, etc., and some organs, wild caught fish. That's it. I can tell somebody that. Got screaming rheumatoid arthritis, that's how you do it. That's how you don't end up with a left knee like mine. It goes away remarkably quickly. It can be a problem even if you include dairy, chicken, pork, or eggs. They can be inflammatory. Paleomedicine are always saying, you know, pork is fantastic. But I said to Sophia, look, you've got Magalitsa pigs over there, haven't you? And they eat truffles, and they go around in the forest, and you know, it's fantastic. That's great. I still don't do that well on it, but it's a hell of a lot better. I said, would you actually eat English pork? She said no, because it's fed rubbish. And so then the fat ends up high in linoleic acid, high in deuterium. Not good. Most people wouldn't notice it. You know, if you're healthy, you could eat that stuff. If you're healthy, you could eat veg. But when you were broken by too many seed oils and grains and all of that for decades, like I was, rice and dal constantly, and all right, 4 bowls of crunchy nut cornflakes at breakfast as well, followed by cheese on toast. That's the thing as well, which we're probably going to get into in food addiction with some people's talks, because the combination of fats and carbs doesn't happen in nature. All the addictive foods, you think about it, pizza, ice cream, chips, chocolate, everything, combination of fats and carbs. Nature doesn't do that, except in breast milk. Right. You just need to be more strict for autoimmunity than you do for diabetes and metabolic issues. You know, David will tell you what probably safe, great things that he's just... Why are you making the NHS broke? Honestly, just gets no money in for the NHS. Amazing stuff he's doing. But to get to the more serious things, really, you have to go much more strict. Beef, lamb, salt, water, but really fatty as well. If somebody comes to me and they say, carnivore's not working, my joint's still hurting, are you eating pork, chicken, dairy or eggs? It's always one of those. If it isn't, it's usually not enough fat. It is absolutely high fat. Like most people, carnivore, eat steak, however it comes, ribeye, absolutely fine. No, 1/3 fat to 2/3 lean meat on the plate, by sight. That's the magic kind of ballpark figure for really getting severe autoimmunity into remission. And not only severe autoimmunity, but cancer too. Now, this is so many case studies. I wanted to have a bit of a run through some case studies we've seen, but all these guys, all of us who work here, you know, all of us who work rather in this area, the case studies we see are incredible, you know. Psoriasis is actually a very tricky one. It hangs on and hangs on. One of the autoimmune things that really takes quite a long time to reverse, but it does. But a lot of people lose faith. There was a young girl who was moving to another city and her mother persuaded her to have a consult with me. And it got her very, very strict. And it was still kept flaring up, go away, flare up. And then finally, she was very, very shy. She would hardly talk on the consults. Then suddenly, I got this video of her in the car, munching away on some beef, driving along, going, hey, it's gone, it's gone. It's finally gone. No more flare-ups. It was absolutely beautiful, you know, because to have that horrendous level of psoriasis that she had as a teenager, that can be horrendous, you know. So, God, it's boiling up here. Sweating more than when I play the drums. So, but loads of ones I could run through, even real interesting ones. Like a lady came to me who was carnivore, and she'd been carnivore for 5 years, everything sorted out, and then suddenly she started gaining weight. She's saying, I have no idea, I haven't changed my diet at all. And what had happened was during the COVID times, she was a masseur and she didn't want to be around people who were shedding. Whether this is a thing or not, I don't know, but that's why she stopped being a masseur. And she started sitting in front of the screen as a Forex trader. And I said, is this when that happened? Yeah, the weight came on. I said, well, I tell you what, get Iris on your computer. Wrap your thyroid up while you're on the computer. It doesn't just go in your eyes, artificial light. Wear some blue blockers, sort the light out in your house. And then suddenly the weight fell off again. It's amazing. Artificial blue light causing kind of, well, what's generally called insulin resistance, which Stephen might debunk in a bit. But yeah, so there's all these things. I could talk about many, but I like to talk about my mum. Now, I'm going to put a bit of a gruesome photo up. Because my mum was 93 and she passed away in 2018, but at 96, I think she was 92 in this, anyway. And she didn't die of this particular ailment I'm going to talk about. It was pneumonia, which quite often gets people of that age. But she said, right, I've got this really big lump in my breast. I was looking after, I was caring for her. She had a stroke in 1996, I think, yes, when she was on statins, but as soon as we got her off those and got her cholesterol nice and high, she was fine for the rest of her life in that respect. But she said, I got a big lump in my breast. And so we went and had it checked out. And yes, it was cancer, and they said it was one of these hormonally driven cancers. And they did take a biopsy, which was probably not such a good idea anyway, because it's pretty obvious what it was. So we kept going to the oncologist, and I said, I'm going to try these things. We're not going to try the meds at the moment. My mum's into that, up for that. And he said, yeah, he was a surgical oncologist, so I think they're a little bit more lenient with not wanting to push all the drugs. And so he was a very cool guy, actually. He was very sweet, but very much into the medical system. You know, I pointed out that there were a load of chocolate machines and crisps and stuff on the oncology ward, you know, in vending machines. And he said, I've never thought about that. Really? You're an oncologist? And I said, do you ever tell anybody anything about diet? Oh yes, he said proudly. I tell people not to drink milk and to go on to soy milk. for a hormonally driven tumour, I just burst out laughing. But he was great. He was very sort of, he put up with me, but he thought I was nuts. Anyway, we tried a load of things. We got, well, obviously we got my mum carnivore straight away. We tried the Rick Simpson oil, you know, the proper long trousers cannabis oil. And, but at 93 odd, she was getting too mashed. And she didn't really kind of know how to deal with it. I'd go round to her place, and she was actually sweeping the lawn once, really stoned. And it was actually reducing a bit, this lump. But I thought, no, I can't do that. So why are you sweeping the lawn? She goes, I have no idea. So we went away from the cannabis idea. We tried a bunch of things, but then I just thought, stop panicking and just take everything out. Except I had this little intuition, which has since been proven quite useful, actually, that, I remember something Jack Cruz said, that if somebody's got fibrocystic breast syndrome, just paint a load of iodine on the breasts and the pain goes away and the lumps go away pretty quickly, especially if you take a oral course of it as well. So we did, and I started giving her that, and I was painting it on the tumour, which was kind of nasty, and it was just about to ulcerate through the skin. And I said to the oncologist, look, if I fail, can we take the breast off? Would you do that, whatever you need to do to keep her out of discomfort? Maybe on a local or something. And he said, yeah, I can do that. And that was cool. So we were working together. So, you know, at that age, I don't think general anesthetics are very good. So anyway, did this iodine protocol for her over about 3 months. I was just guessing. I didn't really know what to do. And then I'd actually given up. And I thought, we're going to have this breast cut off. And suddenly about 2 weeks after we finished the iodine protocol, probably 2 months, she came to me and she said, it's disappearing. I thought, yeah, right. Even I'd lost confidence then. And so I had a look, and I couldn't believe it. And with her permission, when she was alive, this is what I saw. Look at that breast cancer reversing. I showed that to a really militant vegan who was sending me death threats and attacks once on my YouTube channel, and he said, no, you've swapped the pictures around. No, I didn't. I think that's easily provable, but you can see it. But you can see that was ulcerating, and it got a lot better after that. And it's amazing how quickly tumours do actually disappear when you get it right. Anyway, I took my mum back for an appointment because it came up. You know, another appointment came up. Went back to the oncologist, and you know, he'd been really teasing me and thinking I was mad all the time. And I was looking forward to a little bit of revenge. I didn't say anything. He probably thought we were coming in for you know, to get this breast cut off. And I just let him examine her, you know, and he was all cocky, and you could see him stop. And he turned around to me and he said, how on earth did you do that? And I said, I told you how I was going to do it. You just didn't pay any attention. You know, some things worked, some things didn't, but they were all harmless at least. First do no harm. What happened to that, eh? Anyway, I said, is that the first natural cancer reversal you've ever seen? And you're an oncologist? And he said, yes. And I said, I'm a drummer and I've seen quite a few. And we've seen it since then. You know, it's not rocket science. It's not my ideas. I don't take credit for it. You know, it's all these amazing people who wake up and find out these things. And fantastic, just taking away the things that cause it. So what worked for my mum? Was it carnivore? Was it an iodine protocol? Was it the fact that she hadn't been in the sun since the 60s? Oh, and she had a load of keratoses, you know, all over her head. Of course, the dermatologist said that's sun exposure. Not wearing sunscreen. I said, she hasn't been in the sun since the 60s. Last time I saw her was like when I was 3-4 years old. Last time she ever went in the sun, she'd avoid it like crazy. So it's not that, was it? So I got one of those Kiniki kind of capes that you can tan through, because obviously she didn't want to go out in the garden naked and the neighbours were overlooking. And I'd drag her out in the sun and I'd sort the light out and I did all these kind of things. What did it though? Was it the fact that she was, I'm sorry, Mum, she was very, very difficult, and she was a very awkward bugger. I loved her, but I didn't like her very much. We didn't get on, you know. But after my dad he was murdered by the NHS in 2003 for sure, and I looked after her for another 15 years. And was it love and resolution of stress and trauma? See, Maidie probably thinking I'm getting into her area here. And it was, because Maidie's done a lot of work with my attitude to my mum, you know, for me. And it's very interesting to see the stuff in there. Because I had her for a long time, you know. And no, my dear, I'm not going to say I had to look after her. I didn't. She pulled me up on that when she was on my podcast. No, you didn't have to do anything. Yeah, you didn't. But yes, I did it. And, you know, one doesn't have to do anything. But a lot of my things came from that too. Came from things that you get trapped in. I mean, the worst of my symptoms when I was really bad with arthritis with my ankles, they were like broken glass. I could hardly walk. It was absolutely horrific. Trying not to run away from something. You know, look for what you're trying not to run away from. And that, I think, was my mum, because it's very stressful, isn't it? Caring, you know, all the time. Even for somebody you love. Knees, not moving forward in life. This is what might have happened to me, because I don't think it's all on the physical level or the diet level. It all goes in. It's a big wheel of health. Some people have problems in one side, in one area. Some people have problems in another. You know, some people might have a problem with their light. They're working all night. Look at the hormonal disruption that women get from working nights. Really high rates of breast cancer, aren't there, with women working nights, because the whole hormonal system is out. But people say, could it really do that? Well, look at battery chickens, the horrible conditions that they live in. And they keep the lights on, and they kind of lay around the clock, and then they don't live long, and they're just hormonally trashed. So there we go. It can be all these things together. But on the emotional side of it, so what went wrong with me? Knees, not moving forwards in life. I have to admit I've been frustrated. I love what I do, but sometimes I do get pissed off when I think of these arrogant rheumatologists, one of whom shouted at me so loud for saying that my arthritis was not a deficiency in methotrexate. He shouted so loud that he started frothing at the corner of the mouth. Really, that angry that I wouldn't take methotrexate. And I said, look, do you know when you froth at the corner of the mouth, it can be a bit of a sign of heart disease, you know? And I just said that, and I left, and I've never been back to a rheumatologist. That must have been 2011. I only went back to show off how well I'd done with it. And he's going, no. The fear-mongering comes, doesn't it? You have to take methotrexate, otherwise it'll go into your heart and into your lungs, and then you'll get a malignancy. Oh, thanks, mate. You know. When people come to me for a consult now, you say, you fucked up a bit. But do you know what? You're going to come through this journey, and you're going to be so much better the other side. And you're going to learn so much, enough to help your kids down the line. Everything's going to be brilliant. I can't wait to see your healing journey. That's so different to when I went to the rheumatologist, first of all. Yeah, this is psoriatic arthritis. It's incurable. You're going to be on meds for the rest of your life, and they're probably going to blow up your liver. He didn't mention the detaching of the retina and stuff, but they have to check your liver. Crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. But they mean well. I'm sure they mean well. But do some understand? Big lump in my throat it was when I started to see these docs waking up, because I'd had such battles. My book that is available here, you can see the first third of it is the battles with the system, really. And I was telling David yesterday, David Unwin here, that Joanne, my friend Joanne McCormack, who I'm really pleased, another fantastic doctor, and she'd invited me along to do a talk, and David Unwin was there, and Malcolm Kendrick was there. You know, I didn't know who Malcolm Kendrick was. I was that new to this sort of thing and talking. And at the end, I was standing there, and some guy said about neuropathy. He said, I've got like peripheral neuropathy, and I'm really shy. And I said, yeah, well, what he needs is carnivore diet, but more fish in the diet to get through to the nerves. This is very good for people with Parkinson's and things like that. I didn't say that, but and then maybe some magnesium L-threonate, you know, to get through to through the blood-brain barrier. And I was really shy. And David, he just said to me, well, tell him then. And I thought, that's a doc that actually has some trust in me. And it was marvellous, because the stuff that we've learned, the stuff that David's doing with his patient, he didn't learn any of that at med school. And how brilliant was it that he was listened to his patients who were getting better, people who were coming in, instead of my rheumatologist saying, diet will never work, and if you don't take methotrexate, that's it, you're dead. You're going to get cancer. That's probably what he sees. Because he sees somebody, you know, gives up bread for a week and it doesn't really work. You've got to go further than that. Anyway, I think that all of these things are very attached, very, very connected to emotional stuff as well. Why does somebody get arthritis in their left knee and not their right knee? Why in their elbow and not their hip? Why does this happen? My theory actually is, to sum it up, that a healthy gut actually protects you against your emotions, traumas, fears, and lessens physical symptoms. I think it's actually a real blessing. That's why I called my book Arthritis the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. Because there were a load of things. I thought that I was a serious yogi. I'm a great yogi. What do I need with emotional work? That's what, other people do who don't meditate. The arrogance. And what I really needed to do was to look at this stuff, because my God, it really is, it is to do with that. My knee, which is really trashed, but it wasn't until 2022 actually. But the whole thing for me is not moving forward in life, which I was talking about in the room. It does piss me off sometimes. The healing that we see, and very few of us actually manage to monetize it or anything properly. Whereas these rheumatologists who are shouting and screaming, that you've got to take the methotrexate, they're in their smart cars and houses and stuff. And it does glitch a bit. And yeah, I need to tap it out, Mighty. I need to sort it out. But that's the reality of it. It does annoy me. I love doing it. I love the healing stories that we all get. We all get these wonderful emails of this has happened. I've watched this video of yours on YouTube, or I've had this consult with you, or had a consult with Stephen or Richard or any of the other brilliant people in here, and this and that's reversed. Fantastic. But this has been known about. The original book, really, wasn't it? The Louise Hay one. You Can Heal Your Life. Connecting emotions to different physical symptoms. But this is what somebody recommended to me, which was like, he said, it's Louise Hay on steroids. Try this out, this book, if you don't believe in this stuff. It's not a book that you need to read. You just, every time you have a symptom in a certain part of the body, you have a look and see the emotional connection. It's amazing. I do it on consults if somebody's got something and you read it out and they go, wow, that's me. It's really, really interesting. Brilliant, brilliant book. So I think nothing works without confidence. How do you get confidence? You come to things like this. You watch all the videos and you understand the sort of ancestral lens of it. What do humans eat in the wild? How easy is that? You don't need to listen to another diet guru. I say, if you want to understand diet, study anthropology, plant toxins, and deuterium. You're done. You never listen to another diet guru. And not everybody needs to eat exactly the same thing. If we all ate locally and seasonally, including plants, natural wild-grown plants, we would never be in these messes. We don't have these problems. In indigenous tribes, they get animal attacks. They fall out of trees. They get snake bite. They get stuff like that. Infections when they break their leg. It's not the same load of diseases as we have. And it's funny actually. I don't want to steal Mary Ruddick's thunder, but she's travelled around all these tribes, and yes, they do live a long time. She's seen a 120-year-old in Africa dancing around the fire. No problems, physically perfect. 6 generations. Her daughter's 90. Amazing. Get less healthy as they go down as the Western foods come in. Anyway, you've got to trust the process. Now, I don't know what happened to me exactly. I got even more sick over the winter of 2022. I was traveling around with the band. I was eating some crap. I call crap like pork, chicken, dairy, and eggs for me. I wasn't eating plant foods. And I kind of blamed it on that. But I remember after the festival season kind of died down, I started to get pretty sick. And then I wasn't even overweight then. I lost 45 pounds that I didn't need to lose. And my CRP, for those who know about, was 192 when I had it checked. I was in a real mess. And I couldn't really put it together. I couldn't figure out what had happened. I look at it now, and there was a load of stresses in life. There was the whole collective consciousness stress of all the COVID crap. Were they spraying us with stuff? Was there shedding? I had a lot of people with autoimmune conditions around that time, unjabbed carnivores, saying, it's come back, I've had some kind of a recurrence of it. But I got hit really hard, and I kind of blamed it on the food to start with, but I'm not sure it would have done that. I think there was other things. I might never know what happened, but I did know exactly what to do. Just rest, go right back to a proper PKD diet, beef, lamb, salt, and water. There was a point where I couldn't even take any protein, even a good protein for now. I eat a steak, I'd be in agony. I was on like bone broth with lumps of fat floating in it for a while to get back into health. Lydia thinks it was a real psychic attack. She thinks it was some kind of alien thing. And she might be right too. Who knows what's happening these days? I just, everything goes in the I don't know bucket, you know. Love that meme of a guy being loaded into an ambulance, isn't it? And it said, man in a critical condition after hearing slightly differing viewpoint. And I think this is the thing, you know, whatever we believe in, we're just humans, and this is the tribe, and just stop attacking each other, for God's sake. There's been too much of it. You're a muzzle-wearing, you know, normie. You're a granny killer. You're a vegan. You're a carnivore. For God's sake, we're all the same. Just chill out. But anyway, whatever happened, and Detta, my missus, took this picture, and I could hardly even stand at the time. The pain was suicidal. There it is. Look at those ribs. I was down to like 8 stone something, you know. The body was doing what it did, though. I trusted it. And I never had any doubts what to do. It was funny because I had some bloods done because I wanted to send them to Zofia. But the doc obviously intercepted them and phoned me up and said, yeah, you probably got cancer. You got it. And I'm just saying, well, I don't think I have. I think I know exactly what's going on. Body's just really, really detoxing in the way that it does. Even if I do have cancer, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing anything that you want me to do because I've seen it reversed too many times. So I just sat there, but this time it took me, when properly full-on carnivore, no messing about with anything else, no pork, chicken, dairy or eggs, lots of help from Mighty again, brilliant emotional stuff, lots of help from all sorts of people. I mean Lydia, she absolutely took care of me when Dad had to go to work. She would pick my kids up from school. I could not move. You know, I really could not move. Crutches to get about, it was horrendous. But 3 months to get out of it, whereas it took me 3 years before of faffing around. Shall I take this vegetable out? Shall I try this supplement? Shall I try? No. If you're sick, take everything out, as much out as you can. That's what worked here. So what was it? You know, autumn equinox was around that time where, you know, they sort of, the body naturally detoxes. Around that time when people, you know, not that anybody ever would, but it would be a good time to fake a pandemic or something like that. Oh, wash my mouth out. So oxalate dumping too, because of kidney stone leading up to that. I had Sally Norton who wrote a book, great book, you've got to get it, called Toxic Superfoods. She was on my podcast and I said, look, all the time after that, 8 years or so since I had an oxalate, I had another kidney stone. What happened? Take decades to get rid of that. That spinach smoothie binge for about 6 months can knock on for like 10 years, more. And so it could have been that component. But you see, the thing is, does it really matter? The medical system is tremendously, as we all say, you know, you break a bone, you have an anaphylactic issue, you have something like that, yes, go to the hospital. You know, if I fall off a motorbike and break my leg, I'm not going to have a cup of herbal tea, right? Or even a steak. You need to get down there. But with anything, whatever caused it, it's the same thing, isn't it? You just look in your life of all these simple things, whether it's emotional, whether it's diet, whether it's light. Take them out and just lie, chill. What does an animal do when it's sick? It goes somewhere quiet, just lies down, chills out, doesn't eat. You know? See these people who are blowing up like pancreatic cancer on an 11-day dry fast and stuff. Amazing. But that's what you do. So I love Ken Berry's one on this. Substitute proper human diet instead of keto carnivore for any questions about diet. So, example, can I do the proper human diet if I have thyroid issues? Sounds silly, right? People always say, is it all right, you know, if I'm such and such, if I do this, if I eat this way? No, you're the one person who needs a hell of a lot of Cocoa Pops and pizza. Funny, isn't it? So how long does it take? It depends how strict you are with the diet, which autoimmunity. If you've got IBS, sort of that's gone in no time. If you've got something like Crohn's, things like that, it can take a bit longer. Lee and his amazing channel, Lee Coper's here, Ken Carnivore, if anybody's followed his channel, absolutely superb. And he's got great tales of that, you know, great tales of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. And anyway, once it gets out of the gut to things like arthritis, that kind of thing, it can take a bit longer. Neurological issues like MS, that can take longer, less blood supply to the nerves, that can be a bit of a slow thing. It depends on how long you've had the condition. Is there damage? You know, I don't have any inflammation anymore, but I've definitely got damage, which is why I've got a comedy walk these days, you know. I could probably really work on it, but it's funny, with carnivore, you get kind of lazy, the pain goes, and you think, I'll just get used to that knee, not, you know, I can't sit in lotus anymore, but do I really want to bounce around on my arse, creating world peace? I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, how many meds you've taken, that can be an issue. How much stress, how much panic. It's like a ferry, I always say, that people say, how long does it take? You switch the engines off in a ferry or a ship, it'll just carry on for a bit, right? It has to. The body has a lot of mopping up to do. Because a lot of people go, I've been carnivore a week, you know, and my screaming rheumatoid arthritis hasn't fixed itself. It's a week. How long have you been sick? You know, nature's slower, but it's safe. So what does a daily routine actually look like? Well, for me, you know, apart from right now, because I'm knackered and I've got a million things to do here, but gratitude on waking prevents that sort of dread of the day. Oh my God, another day, I've got to do this. Get outside, get the sunrise in your eyes. Don't look at your phone first thing. Get bare feet on the grass. More sun at different times to tolerance. See, there's some things that don't fix. I used to go beautifully brown, bang, like that. I used to be out in the Red Sea with my parents in Aqaba in Jordan, and I don't remember sunscreen or anything like that. I have great melanin production. And then here's another interesting thing, and Jack Cruz has brought this into perspective. Melanin can get destroyed by not having enough natural light. I spent 30 years with contact lenses and my favorite collection of Oakleys while fishing and mountain biking all the time. Hardly ever had natural light in my eyes. Probably completely trashed all my melanin. By the time I was really, really fat in, you know, 2010 or so, I couldn't stand the sun. It wasn't like a day like this. I mean, if it was even 70 degrees and there was a little bit of cloud, I'd be doing that. You know, and now I can take it, but it's never going to fix. I'm not going to get a great tan again, probably. I think Sarah Pugh, actually, she told me how to do it. But it takes, you know, building up your solar callus with every single part of the day. I don't know whether we've got time to do that kind of thing with the lifestyles we have these days. But still 100 times better than I ever was. But some things don't fix. You always kind of get scars. It's funny because some vegans, they attack various carnivores. And I have a video on my YouTube channel called Why Do Carnivores Look Like Shit? And it's take into account somebody's starting point, you know? Who would you want to take dietary advice from? Some young teenager who's never got, you know, he's never had particularly any experience of anything. They eat pretty much what they want, but they do a lot of training, they're ripped, they look great. Then they get a diet channel. Or somebody who's lost 200 pounds and got a load of loose skin, doesn't lose that. I'm going to listen to that guy, you know, who's got reversed his diabetes, and that's a guy I want to listen to. So it's always tough, you know, take someone's starting point into consideration. But anyway, yeah, just get the body moving, do some high intensity stuff, some resistance training. You don't need to do long stuff. Rebounding even, get that lymphatic system moving. Walking, that's what we're designed for. Eat fatty animal-based food when hungry and stop when full. Very simple. Limit screen time and EMF exposure. Use iris tech and or blue blockers if you're working on the computer. If you're not grounded, go out every now and again, get on the ground. Don't use artificial light after sunset and bedroom in complete darkness. It's not that difficult, you know. I'd say when you tell people, you say, don't believe me, don't believe anybody here. Just try it for yourself. If you're reasonably healthy, go fully carnivore for 30 days. You see what happens. If you've got some serious issue, commit to 90 days. Sorry to the vegans, but even a vegan diet won't kill you in that time. So how I work with clients is you absolutely nail the diet and get them the confidence. But why do we talk so much about diet? Because it's easy to talk about diet, but then people have got so many myths, so many misconceptions built up around it. You know, if you're working with a vegan, you say, right, get all the light right, get grounded, you know, hug a tree, get rid of the EMFs. Yeah, excellent. Sort out all the emotional stuff. Beautiful, yeah. And have a steak. And then you got to work on that because, you know, there's so many misconceptions. Because isn't it the most dangerous food? Red meat? Worst of all. Worst of all. Anyway, yeah. I just do that, and then then the fun comes where you clean up their quantum circadian habits and look into the emotional stuff. And that's awful, because I feel like I'm playing drums in front of Vinnie Colaiuta or something, because I'm talking about helping people with their emotional stuff, and there's Maidi sitting at the back. And now, Nikita's out there. Right, I can't talk about this stuff anymore, because these are the absolute experts. I'm saying, Nikita, you've got to meet Maidi, and Maidi, you've got to meet Nikita. Brilliant. Right, I love matchmaking. So, this is the book that I wrote about it. It's my battles. It was about 10 years ago now. There's my battles with the medical system. People say it's pretty hilarious. I always have a sense of humor, even if something's gone horribly wrong. I think we deal with things in different ways, don't we? The second part of it is all about finding out about the dietary thing and learning gradually. And the third part is all the woo-woo stuff about, you know, lots of crazy stuff about mushroom tripping and God knows what that we won't get into today. But that's me. That's for sale over there if anybody wants a copy. I think Ross and Ricky have got them over there. But thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for having this wonderful community that can make all... I think a lot of people are can feel quite isolated, you know. I'm lucky, because I'm sort of in this community anyway, but, you know, a lot of people have family and friends go, you're absolutely barking mad. The doctors are saying you're barking mad, and so it's nice to have people together, and it's a great vibe. Thank you all so much for coming. Are we okay? No questions? I've waffled and covered everything, have I? That's cool. So I'm going to take a bit of a break, unless anybody's got anything. And then we've got the spectacular David Unwin, who is saving humanity single-handedly. See you in a bit, 20 minutes or so. Thanks.